So Dead by Daylight are currently doing a live Ask Me Anything session, and there's quite a bit of juicy information in this. So let's go over everything and recap. Kings and queens, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Let's take a look at this Ask Me Anything on Reddit. There's a lot of juicy information on this that I want to showcase to you guys. So let's go ahead and read some of the questions that people had and the juicy replies that Dead by Daylight have given them. So the question from Squid Child says, has it been considered to clean up some of the more useless offerings on the Blood Web, such as the ones that only slightly buff blood points? DBD replied, or Michael I should say. Michael said, we are actually exploring the offerings and their system as a whole right now and the design team. I can't give you any hints about what might be changed or what might end up, but we're exploring new effects and actively designing ways to make the system better overall. That is pretty interesting. We've been saying for such a long time that offerings need some changes. It was nice when we had splinters and other things like that. Now some of the offerings are just very mediocre and outdated, so them changing it towards the future would be absolutely fantastic. So having, information, knowing that they're actively looking at this and testing different things is fantastic. We can make a whole dedicated video on what types of offerings they could bring into the game. But this is pretty cool. I am pretty happy about that. There's another one from Squid Child. They said, are there any plans to rework or change Freddy in any way? They said, I can't give any super secret details, but I can tell you that he's on our radar for killers to update. So it seems that Freddy is on the list to eventually get some changes, but nothing currently being tested. It makes sense. Freddy's one of the more underperforming killers in the game. Used to be super high and mighty. Now people don't play him as much, so it's understandable. So I guess we wait and see what they'll eventually do with Freddy. As we know from the Twins rework though, it's been such a long time since we even heard that, so you might be waiting quite a while for something to be changed with Freddy. Someone asked, whatever happened to the promised Twins rework? It was talked about when the next killer update after Legion and Ghostface, and we haven't heard anything about it. And they replied, due to limited space in each release and the unexpected complexity of the updated needed for the Twins, the update has been delayed a lot longer than they wanted. However, it's been designed and we are working on releasing something in early 2024. So Twins players rejoice, aka Linksy and Pixel. But yeah, no, this is great news. We've been talking about the Twins rework for such a long time, and it looks like we finally might be seeing something for the Twins. I hope they didn't make Victor AI because they said that it's complex. That wouldn't necessarily be the best change for them, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm excited though, because that means the Twins probably got a massive overhaul. So looking forward to seeing exactly what is going to be coming out in early 2024. We gotta wait and see. Also, I just realized that this is 2023 and not 2024. So you still gotta wait about 6 months for this one, which again makes sense in the whole grand scheme of things with all the new chapters and things like that. It'll still be quite a while. So here we have a little bit of a jam-packed question, basically saying that the team has stated that they would only be doing human/humanoid killers in the game. Obviously, with Stranger Things license, a killer really could not be humanoid, especially given the season's release at the time. However, with the release of the Dredge and that Singularity, we have now gotten a few original monstrous killers. What changed with the design philosophy of TBD that allowed this to happen? And can we expect further creative visual designs like them in the future? Dave replied saying, well, I'm not saying this is a lie, but the fact that we said we would only do humanoid was not a design philosophy. It was more of a technical / scope limitation at the time. If you were with us for a while, you probably remember us saying we'd put Christine the car and Cujo the dog in DBD if we could. Every worthy bloodthirsty creature has a space in the world of the entity. So what's allowed us to do so? We've leveled up. The team is bigger and more experienced, all thanks to the growth of the community, of course. Characters with different design structures are definitely going to happen again as we can continue to explore more possibilities in DBD. That's pretty huge. It basically means the limitations that the community has kind of put on based on what the developers have said, eyeing different licenses and things like that, that doesn't exist anymore. Like, that's all out the window. The devs are like, we got this. If you name it, we'll do it. That's fantastic news. I can't wait to see what other creative and unique things they're going to do. It opens up the realm of possibilities to finally having maybe not necessarily like a flying killer, because the game wasn't designed around that, but you could have a killer kind of like the Singularity, that leaps onto walls, you know, that can jump from wall to wall and jump over pallets. You can have a four-legged creature that runs across pallets and vaults or transforms for a set amount of time. Maybe you could have a flying type of killer, but it can't go to a certain height, so all the maps aren't superficially affected. This is interesting, and it really opens up the door to a lot of different possibilities. Here's a great question. How long from concept to release does it take to design a full killer, not including perks, survivor maps, etc.? DVD replied, they said it fluctuates depending on the weather, I say, but in general, about 11 to 12 months overall from start to finish. It's pretty crazy. When I went to Montreal, the way it was described to me is that the team, you know, let's say there's like, I don't know, 5 different teams working on 5 different things. One team working on perks, one on survivor, one on maps, one on killers, which it's not obviously like that, but I'm just using it as an example to make you guys understand a little bit better. Now, every different person is working on a different chapter. You know, everyone is doing something. So 3 people from one team might be working on chapter A, while the other 3 are working on chapter B, and the last 3 are working on chapter C. That way, all the timelines can get hit, everything goes into rotation, and it flows quite well. And that's why these chapters take so long. And we've been saying this for quite a while that, you know, it's not necessarily Dead by Daylight being like, oh, well, we just got to use this chapter, boom, throw this one out. It's not really possible to do that in that time crunch. You got to remember, they're also doing balancing updates. They're doing bug fixes. They're giving us mid-chapter patches. So during all of that, they're working on these chapters. And that's why sometimes we might see a chapter and we're like, that doesn't necessarily get quite close to home. This isn't what we were looking for. And, you know, we kind of experienced some of that with the Skull Merchant and the Knight being more lackluster chapters in the community's eyes, I must say, but nonetheless, polished chapters that really went through the entire cycle. It wasn't necessarily a chapter that was like, ooh, yeah, just toss this out there, boom. It's been a project that's been worked on months and months and months, and it just didn't resonate with the community as much. Nonetheless, I'm not going to open that can of worms because it can get pretty messy. We basically know that it takes quite a while for the devs to make these chapters. Here's a quite interesting one. Is there any discussion regarding raising killer FOV or an FOV slider to help reduce motion sickness for those affected? We've been asking for this for years. They said short answer, yes. Long answer, we have a design that is in development and the release date is in our field of vision. You can expect to see something later this year or early next year. That is fantastic. I mean, we've been waiting almost 7 years. We have been waiting for 7 years for an FOV slider to come into the game. Well, I guess 6 technically in a couple of months. But finally, an FOV slider is confirmed officially by the devs to come into the game. This is exciting stuff. I'm really looking forward to it. It's amazing. I can't wait to be in like 120 FOV and running around. Ah, this makes me so happy. FOV slider is confirmed. The next question is, has there been any thoughts on adding alternative game modes or queues? Of course, this would be a massive undertaking, but I'm curious if there ever been this has been given any real thought. Justin said, it's been an idea that has always been in the back of our minds. I can confirm this is something we are actively prototyping. We plan on starting small and doing game modes as limited time modes and building up from there. We are hopeful that we'll have more to share with you all later this year. Wow. So that is huge. We got a confirmation that they are prototyping new game modes in DBD. It's really interesting because a long time ago, and again, I think this goes to what Dave was saying earlier in one of the answers, they really have leveled up. We always had the idea of bringing in new game modes, and obviously the classic 2v8 was there. The devs said that they'll probably never end up doing this. One of the major reasons because it is because they didn't have the player base or the player pool to do that. So if you have like 10,000 people playing and then you split them half and half, other debates can be for ranked and unranked. It really makes one of the sides more often than not get enough attention or love. That being said, I always said that if they were to incorporate new game modes, it would be in the form of events. It will be like, all right, here's something new that you have to do, but still similar to the core. Now it seems that they are doing that, but their big picture idea is to eventually bring it in as a full-on game mode. I don't know how that's going to affect the game. I've always said that if they do a custom game mode, it should be in custom games itself, so that way players can still, experience it. You won't kill the player base necessarily and splitting them into two different parts and have to worry too much about balancing, and offer some good incentives if you do that. We gotta wait and see. I'm excited nonetheless. What type of game modes do you think we're gonna see? I know Matthew Cote always said in our interviews that we'll probably never see this, and I remember Justin specifically saying on one of the, I think it was one of the anniversary Q&As or something like that, mentioning that they were talking and exploring new game modes. So quite interesting. DBD has truly leveled up, and we can expect some new game modes, as I said, or at least more information later this year. Excited. Here's a good question, and I want to incorporate this because I think a lot of people also have this misconception with a lot of things. The question basically says, will there be a shift away from relying on pure statistics and instead listening to experienced players / more qualitative feedback in general? The statistics-based approach for balancing has been a huge pain point for the past 7 years, where Dead by Daylight replied, while data is crucial in balancing in general, it's not a substitute for player or design feedback. Our approach to balancing is a bit more complicated than this, and I can say it does not solely rest on game design. This is 100% true. I do think some of the smaller tweaks that they incorporate here and there are obviously, yes, just based on statistics. It's like, okay, this is obviously overused by 90% of the community. Example, Dead Hard, we need to make a change. And then there's obviously different things that they may have improved or touched upon, such as nerfing some of the nurses add-ons that stats necessarily wouldn't reflect. If you look at stats, it would show that nurse is one of the weakest killers in the game. So I 100% agree with Thomas here and the dev team that it's not necessarily 100% based on just stats. And I think that people kind of see it that way. In some points, I even felt that way, that they were just purely looking at stats and making these decisions. But obviously that is not the case. There's a lot more that goes into it, but sometimes it can feel that way. A common misconception. Someone asked, will there be unique items for survivors? Michael replied, it just goes to show how brilliant minds think alike. We've been discussing this very recently, no concrete plans, and we're still in very early in this process. We were talking about when and how we could put out some new items in the future, plan on it at some point. So, I mean, that's good to know that what they're having in this comment, waiting for the Glock 19 item update. Perfect. But yeah, this is good to know. It's on their radar. It's something that would probably take a very long time, but it's something they're thinking about internally. Someone asked if they could release something like a shirt related to Peppers in honor of him and what he brought to the DBD community. Obviously, we mentioned this in our previous video a few days ago. Sadly, Peppers, friend, content creator, Fog Whisperer, awesome person in general, sadly passed away. And Dead by Daylight basically replied saying, Pupper's passing has been a huge loss for our whole community and has been deeply felt here on the team. We have seen the discussions amongst players on how best to remember him and honor him, and we've been following it closely and have seen similarly discussing it within the team. While we have a strong desire to do something, it's simply too soon right now to say what we might be able to commit to. And that, of course, is completely understandable. I'm happy that the Pupper's Charm is currently in the game. And again, you guys can get that Warrior Pupper's Charm by putting in Warrior Puppers and rocking that charm and walking ball to white. Maybe one day in the future, we'll see even some more things for Pupper. That'll be absolutely fantastic. For now, that's all I'm going to be rocking myself. All right, someone asked, I think many people would agree with me in saying that Hillbilly needs some add-on adjusted. That is true. But also, why is the overheat mechanic still a thing? It's a pretty much a non-factor, and there are add-ons that increase the overheat limit anyways. I agree. They said, I feel you. Billy occupies a squishy place in all of our hearts, and we've been working on him. An update has been designed for our Billy Boy, including add-ons. No specific date planned for implementing this just yet, but you can expect news from us sometimes in the next year. Sharpen your chainsaw. So, next year, we're going to be seeing some changes to Hillbilly, which is 6 months away or so. Billy's going to be getting some improvements. Keep that in mind. Someone asked, will you ever expand the daily rituals to give one survivor and one killer daily each day? Also, would weekly or monthly rituals ever be added for a bigger payout? This is something we've been speaking about as well. So let's see. They said nothing concrete on the roadmap. Get it? But multiple ideas have been explored to improve the system. Thanks for the suggestion. We've been open to reading the community's ideas and feedback on the topic, and we'll be considering them when discussing the next step. So nothing there yet. Again, it's on their radar, something that they're thinking about, but it's way down the list, so we'll probably not see anything like this anytime in the future. Here's a big one. Is there going to be an update where survivors can always recover from dying state, like the one-off with Unbreakable? Think remember reading this once, shares. I can tell you're dying to know. No, we are not planning on making that part of the base game. If you're referring to the finisher Mori, we tested that in the PTB, but it was an early prototype test. There was a lot of feedback, and we are still working on that feedback. But again, we are not planning on putting Unbreakable in the Survivor base kit. That one is huge. It means that we're not going to see the Unbreakable update basically coming in, which means the second part of this with the finisher Mori, it's going to be quite interesting. I don't know what they're necessarily going to plan for the finisher Mori. I think the best way of doing this is just making it so that when the last survivor is there, an actual last survivor, if you down them, you just Mori them. You know, I think that's the best way to incorporate it because they'll be dead at that point anyways. I think that'll be pretty cool. We gotta wait and see. They can also make it so that everyone is kind of like Pyramid Head, which again, I think that one might be a little bit too much for one side because it completely removes the ability to get flashlight saves, things like that. In the off chance that it does happen, or blocking the hooks or saboing hooks, like there's a ton of different counterplay that you could do it if someone's on death hook. If they made it so that once you're on death hook, you just automatically go into a Mori. So I think the best way that they can incorporate this finisher Mori, so you'll see it a lot more often, is that if one person is alive, or maybe if EGC is there, you have the option to just Mori somebody. I think that would be pretty good, and only if they're on the dying state. So just kind of incorporating more into your base kit once the end game is ready to go, or they're the last survivor, that just automatically puts you into that scene. Here are some things that I also seen on Twitter that I just couldn't find on the Reddit post. They said that custom matches essentially have been untouched for far too long. Unfortunately, it's still too early to give an ETA on when you could expect to start seeing some of these improvements in the game. So that's pretty cool though. We're going to see some new features and some new things coming into custom games as well. I'm excited for that. I've been speaking about this for such a long time. There's so much that they could do for custom games, man. There's so much that they can do for custom games that would help them out. Here's another cool thing. They basically said we will start porting some mobile cosmetics over starting sometime in the next year. The first batch will be small with just 4 outfits to Killer to Survivor. Also, worth noting, nothing, they won't be a one-to-one port. We'll make some small color or texture changes being brought into DBD. Lastly, to manage expectations, there will be some mobile outfits that will never get ported over. So that's pretty interesting. In our interview with Matthew Cote, somebody basically was asking from the community if we'll ever see these cosmetics in the game, and during that time he said you should probably just buy it, which at that point in time was about almost a year ago. So that was completely understandable, and it seems that we are still going to be getting some skins coming into the game. Hopefully we get some really cool ones. We gotta wait and see. But there you go, ladies and gents. That is pretty much all of the news and information that I have for you guys today. They're still actively doing this AMA. There probably is going to be some more interesting points, so if there is, I'll leave it down in the comments down below. Thank you again for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Again, we're back on the content grind. You'll be seeing a lot more videos coming from me during this week, and Mondays when we officially get back into everything. Again, I apologize for having such a rough schedule. Nonetheless, it's going to be pretty fun when you see all the cool things that I've gotten done for you guys. I hope you guys did enjoy. As always, I'm the king. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the vlog.